Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have two very special guests, one just down the street from me here in Toronto, and another one who's in California, the beautiful, sunny California. I'm a little envious because the other day we had snow up here. Ben, Daniel, thank you guys so much for taking the time to jam with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks for having us, Jason.
Hey guys, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and kind of don't know who you guys are, how you got started in the business or got your businesses started, let's start off with a couple origin stories. I think that'd be a cool place to kind of kick this off. Ben, I'm going to start off with you. Ben, how did you get started in the automotive industry?
Yeah, so we started Car Pages in 2004. It was actually my dad and I that started the business. Prior to that, I worked in IT as a web developer. So kind of having a tech background made it, I guess, easier to launch a web marketplace. But at the time, there was Auto Trader in Canada, and there was nobody else. There was no competition. So I looked at the US market, and there was Cars.com and AutoBytel and Auto Trader, and there was some competition and innovation where that wasn't really happening here in Canada. So that's where the idea started from. That was kind of the seed. And from there, it kind of grew into what Car Pages is today, which is one of the biggest auto marketplaces in Canada.
I had heard a rumor that a lot of the development happened around a family kitchen table. Is that true?
That's not far from the truth.
I heard that there was some heavy maybe conversations between yourself, your brother, and your dad.
Yeah, definitely. There still are.
I love the fact that it's a real family, set up for you guys. It's so cool. Hey, Daniel, for yourself, how did you get started in the automotive industry?
Yeah, so I'm pretty far away from automotive. I've always enjoyed buying cars at a dealership, as crazy as that might sound.
Wait, hold on a second. Did you say you enjoy buying cars at a dealership?
I actually enjoy negotiating deals. So it's like a thing. I probably help on average 5 to 10 friends buy cars almost on a monthly basis, giving them advice and tips and things like that. But I was a consultant for Bain and Company back in 2011, 2012 time, and our client was actually Cox Automotive. This was back in the days, 2011, they were still Auto Trader and Mannheim, and we got brought in because they had just acquired V-Auto, Vin Solutions, Kelly Blue Book, the whole 9 yards. And we were brought in to do a lot of the post-merger integration work. So we got to sit right on the same floor as Chip Perry, who used to lead Auto Trader back then, and a great friend. And I kind of drank out of the fire hose in terms of what the automotive industry meant. And I saw there were a lot of opportunities. I mean, one of the things that Cox tried to do was integrate all the solutions that they had purchased. But after that, I kind of said, you know what, I think I could do a better job. So started Orbi about 5 years ago in 2015.
Now, Orbi. I'm always curious because I'm always fascinated with how names come about. Where in the hell did you come up with the name Orbi?
Yes, it's actually a really funny story. The short answer is I didn't know what the heck I was doing when we first started with the company. So we thought, yes. And for the record, I thought we were going to do kind of like what Spin Car is doing now in terms of 360 videos and the whole orbit, Orbi, that's how we got the name. And we don't do anything remotely close to that anymore. So there you go.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey guys, my next question for you is kind of getting an idea of what your guys' current norm is, because I'm finding for everybody, it's all slightly different. It can be different from one side of the country to the other. It can be different from one continent to another. So I'm very curious on what your guys' current norm is, both for yourself personally and for your business. Ben, I'll start with you. What's your current norm look like?
Yeah, so it's very different than what it was 2 months ago. Um,
Mhm.
we're I'm working from home, so we have 28 employees at Car Pages. Everybody's working from home. We use tools like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, email, FaceTime, those kinds of things to stay connected with each other. But I also have three young kids, so I've got three boys, all under 10, ages 9, 7, and 3, and they're all homeschooling right now. So it's my wife and I are trying to manage a household plus get work done plus stay sane at the same time, which some days is easier than others. But yeah, it's definitely not normal times.
It really isn't. I mean, everyone got hit so hard. And Ben, I'm with you. I got three
Yeah.
kids under the age of 9 at home, and wow, boy, did I mean, like I thought this was going to be difficult. Just being away from my team and not having that face to face conversation like I do with dealers. But wow, having three kids at home and doing the homeschooling thing, Ben, I feel your pain. Like it is hard. Like my kid the other day came up to me and asked me a geometry question, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do this. Sit down. Go ask your mother. I seriously had no idea. Hey Daniel, for yourself, what does the current norm look like for you and your business?
Yeah, so I think the biggest challenge sometimes that I have is, man, the days just kind of blend into each other, and a lot of the
Ain't that the
times you
truth?
wake up on Wednesday and you're like, is it Friday? Like, or no, you wake up on Friday and you go, oh, it feels like Wednesday still, right? This time just flies by. We've been working from home March 16th. We have 32 employees, and yeah, the organizational cost of trying to keep in touch with all of your employees has been very difficult. I'm looking at my calendar right now, and literally from 11 o'clock my time all the way to 5 p.m., there is literally a meeting every single half hour or on the hour. So trying to kind of keep up with that, I think has been pretty interesting. And yeah, I don't have kids yet, but I do have a wife, and she was quarantined here with me, but now she is in Germany.
Wow.
So kind of going solo. And what I've noticed is I don't eat until 6 p.m. a lot of the days. So it's been I got to kind of pace myself a little bit here.
That's cool. But then
Yeah.
everything changed so fast. I mean,
It
we
did.
went through something similar, during the recession, but that was like a 6 to 9 month period when things really start to change. I mean, this was 2 weeks. 2 weeks, the industry just kind of went, and so many changes happened so fast. And I think that's a perfect segue kind of into what the girth of our conversation is going to be about today, and just really kind of talking about the new norm. And I thought I'd start off with this question, guys, since both of you guys have companies and you're managing teams, is, how do you keep the culture, of your business kind of alive, during this time frame? I'm kind of finding that some companies do it really well, and then some companies are sticking their head in the sand and putting their fingers in their ears and just kind of wanting to like just wait until this thing whole blows over. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions of how, as a business we can maintain our culture, during this time frame. Ben, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so one thing that we've been trying to do is have a bi-weekly video call with everybody in the company. And just to give, I'll give some updates on the company, where things are at, any news from the industry that I come across, but also just to see each other's faces. I think it's
Mm.
important, when you're at home by yourself or with your family, and it's you don't get the chance to come to the office and socialize. You've got to have some kind of connection with each other. And we found that just doing a video meeting with everybody on board helps a lot. Apart from that, we still celebrate birthdays. We celebrate anniversaries just over Microsoft Teams. We'll like post messages or virtual birthday cards for each other. Just fun things that kind of add a bit of spice to the day. Um, Other than that, though, we when the isolation period started, I guess at the end of March, and the industry here in Canada kind of shut down, one of the things that we started hearing from dealers was a concern of like, how do they keep selling cars when they're not able to have their doors open, right? So we had a lot of internal discussion, and what we came up with was an idea um, that we call buy from home. So if you go on our website, you'll see a buy from home banner, and all it is, it's a consumer marketing program that creates awareness for consumers that there is an option to buy a car remotely. So in Ontario and in a lot of provinces in Canada, the law allows dealers to sell a car to somebody remotely. So that includes doing at-home test drives, signing paperwork digitally, taking delivery of the vehicle, doing financing online, and what it's done is push dealers towards digital retailing in a way that nothing else has to this point. So I think that when we launched Buy From Home, we got some good PR coverage from it. We had an interview with CTV News. We did a live on-air interview with News Talk 1010 and a few other places. And it was well received by both the media and dealers that we work with. So when we launched, I think it was April 7th, we had 240 dealers on board with the program. And as of yesterday, we had 750 enrollments from dealers.
Wow.
So
I mean, that's really got to keep the morale of everybody up. pretty huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really good for our team at CarPages. Just, we've been really busy over the last few weeks, or last, I guess, month and a bit, working on our buy from home program. It's given us a focus to kind of tackle during this downtime, but it's also been good for our customers just to show them that we're working hard even when things are slow, and we're being creative to figure out how do we continue to help our customers when things are not normal.
Well, and I feel like that's what we have to do as business leaders, right? We have to get creative, and we have to stay focused. And I think that's a great way to kind of keep our team's culture and kind of keep everybody motivated if there is something, that they can truly focus on and continue to work towards. And Ben, your program helped that in a huge way. But I think anybody out there that, is struggling a little bit more, having something that everyone can truly focus on can make a big difference. Hey, Daniel, for yourself, how do you keep your company's kind of culture alive and motivated, kind of during this time frame?
Yeah, so definitely a lot of the things that Ben talked about in terms of staying in touch. For the first time ever for our company's history, at least in the beginning, we almost had bi-weekly meetings, the whole team just getting on chat because, we just wanted to make sure that we're aligned. We don't do that anymore. But yeah, I think it's trying to get a lot of FaceTime with people. And we did a cool event about 2 weeks ago where we did like online scribble, and then we delivered every employee a boba, which is kind of this Asian drink. I don't know if you guys know, but it's like pretty popular in California. So we did that, which was pretty exciting. And, we got some pretty good social media posts out of it. But also I think with COVID-19, it's been a time where we also got to say, hey, are there things that are not working that we want to change, right? Everything from, initiatives that we bring on to kind of even cultural things where everything, when business is normal or it's you don't have these kind of moment of crisis, it's really hard to change things, but everything is up for discussion. And that's probably one of the reasons why, auto dealers, both, I'm sure in Canada and also in the US, where, they started adopting kind of more of this digital retailing buy online attitude because, hey, you have a conversation with the sales guy, you're like, hey, you either have your job, I have to furlough you, or you're going to start making phone calls, or do deals online. And it's a much easier discussion to have because there are a lot of these kind of preconceived notions about what's acceptable and not literally got thrown out the door. And I thought it was a great opportunity for our team. We also launched a COVID-19 essentials marketing kit for any dealer to download in the US for any automotive dealer free of charge. And that was a pretty big hit, and our team got around it. But yeah, it's I kind of look at this period, and I think for a lot of our dealers too, as a moment where you can reinvent yourself and take a lot of opportunities and do things that you normally couldn't do in a non-pandemic time.
Well, you know what, and it's true. Reinventing ourselves is kind of what's necessary. No, I don't think we need to do it just because it's a good idea. As an industry, we have to kind of invent our efforts and our processes because the customer now demands it. I mean, it's been a fundamental shift for us. I mean, I kind of use this analogy, and I've used it several times, but it just makes so much sense. I mean, why would I ever walk into a grocery store again? Ben, you know this. Like, you got 3 kids. Like, it was, what the hell was I thinking? Even walking into a grocery store, that's a stupid idea. Like, it's crazy. It's like literally, I have to plan it out like a tactical optics, or an ops team where it's like, okay, guys, we're going in, we're going sneaky, we're going for this, and we got to move on. Now it's like I just go online, I just doop 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 doop, and it's like. I pull up to the grocery store, flip open the hatch, they throw it in, I drive off. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, even Uber Eats. I used to use Uber Eats, maybe a couple times, a month or something like that. I hate to say it, but it's almost every other day now where I'm just going, yeah. Or, it's like, oh crap, I'm out at tape and pencils and staples. Like, okay, let me jump on one of those go-to apps and someone will go to Staples for me and pick the stuff up. Like, as the customer is changing and getting so used to and adapting to this type of frictionless, process as an industry. I think the customers are looking at us as an industry and going, hey, I think you need to do the exact same. So I'd like to kind of get your guys' thoughts and opinions on this as far as like how the sales process for dealerships is going to play out, over the next 3, 6, or 12 months. Ben, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, consumers' behavior has changed. And I think with the automotive industry, I think what's going to drive digital retailing and online sales is consumer behavior. It's not going to be something that the dealers decide to do on their own without consumer support. But as people switch or adapt more and more the idea of buying things online, everything from groceries to office supplies to whatever, the automotive industry is kind of the last beast to tackle in a sense, right? I mean, the idea of buying a car without going to a dealership is fairly new. I mean, if you look at Carvana or something like that, like they've been doing it for a few years, but in Canada, it's even more obscure than it is in the US. And I think that, COVID-19 has kind of pushed consumers to look for options when buying cars, right? So people that need a car right now, if you're, a frontline worker and you're terrified of taking the bus anymore and you want to buy a car, how do you do it when you can't go to a dealership? Ontario dealers are open now by appointment only, so you can go into the dealership, but I think there's going to be people that choose not to, and if there are options to buy online, I think now and even in the future, that's going to become more and more of a preference.
Well, even if they don't buy it all online, it's really limiting the amount of time I have to spend in that physical location. Like I just placed an order with Canadian Tire, which is for us is kind of like Daniel. It's kind of like a Walmart. I've just got a little bit of everything. Yeah. So I placed the order and I just showed up. I showed them my number, my name, and they just brought it out and I just paid for it and went off. So it's like I did have to physically go, and I actually I'll be honest with you, I didn't mind driving. I've been in the house. I haven't wore shoes, guys, for 2 weeks. Okay, so like the fact that I could actually go out and drive for 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of nice. Put the windows down, crank up the radio. I was like, this is cool. But then I didn't have to go in and stand in line with 60 other people to get my purchase. I just really was able to pull up, tap, and kind of drive off at that point. So I think what it is, even for dealers, is that it may not be 100% online, but like how much of it can I do where I don't have to spend that 3.5 hours inside of a dealership doing, Daniel, I know you love doing negotiations, so I'm curious to get your kind of thought on this. I mean, would you be interested in doing a majority, if not all, negotiations, online before you even showed up to the dealership? Daniel, how do you see, kind of that sales process playing out?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really interesting that you actually say sales process, and that's what it is, process over tools. And what do I mean by that is a lot of the times, we think a digital retailing tool is an answer to our ailing needs, but it's just kind of like, somebody who's not really great at sports gets new equipment. It's a hardware issue more than anything else, right? So I agree with you. There's a couple of kind of key concepts that I have. I feel that consumer behavior is changing in a way where they can't go to the dealership, right? And potentially because they get used to kind of doing things at home, virtually, on the phone or whatever, that might actually continue on. But there is this other aspect of behavior, which someone like me, where, man, if I don't call 10 dealers and try to negotiate a best deal for myself, and unless if we become all a one price deal, kind of car sales environment that some of the other brands might have. But unless if we get there, you are still going to have people who want to talk or negotiate a deal. Now, it might not be in person. It could be over the phone. It could be text or whatever kind of medium. But I think the key thing for dealers to understand is that, tools like digital retailing is not kind of your whole answer. The holistic approach you need to take is around what you said, friction, right? Like, how do I reduce the amount of friction for my customer, whether he or she wants to come to my store or to spend 5 minutes at the dealership or not come at all? And then properly identifying, what they want in terms of the engagement level you have. And honestly, after that, having a great process to take care of them. And all you really need to digital retail in these days is a website and a phone, right? And every dealership has that. So I think that's kind of the key parts. And then the ones that have been successful, we work with over 800 dealerships in the US, and the dealerships that have been successful that I've seen are the ones that have really just rolled up their sleeves and they're like, okay, our BDC department's gone. My GSM is now making phone calls on leads if they have to, right? Like, we'll figure out a way to deliver a vehicle, and it just accelerates a lot of the learning in a short period of time. And the ones that were able to adapt, create a better process, that's based on the current environment, I think have been very successul during this time.
No, I'm with you, Daniel. I mean, I honestly feel like we're going to have to process our way to profitability. Look at it this way. Look, for this last year, it was a flat year for us as an industry. But the 5 years before that, we had increases quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. I mean, we came off of one of the biggest increases in automotive industry, in a very long time. And then this last year, we kind of flattened out. And now I'm finding, that we're actually having to take time. Like, we actually have to create process. We can't half-ass it. I honestly, I think for the last 5 years, there have been a lot of dealerships out there that have been able to half-ass their operations and still do decent for themselves. I think we're going to come into a time frame that we can't do that anymore. We cannot half-ass it. We have to have good, solid, documented processes so that our customers feel confident in those documented processes that they'll want to come in and ultimately do business with us. Now, that's actually kind of a good segue into my next question for you guys. Is I don't know about you guys, but I've been reading about half a dozen publications right now that are telling this dark and gloomy story of what the automotive industry is going to look like in the next 12 months and how we better get ready for a crash. Everything's dropping. We're all falling off of an edge, and sales are going to be down 30, 40, 50, 60%. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't necessarily see that happening. I mean, you guys both kind of mentioned, earlier, about public transit. I mean, here where we are in Canada, where we are just here in Ontario, 1.5 million people use public transit. Well, how many of those really want to get back into a bus or train? I mean, in California, public transit is huge as well. And then I count that and I add that to the group of people that were in market for a car before this all happened, and then all the lease returns that are coming off of it, and ride sharing. I mean, hey guys, real quick, either one of you going to jump in the back of back of a stranger's car anytime soon?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. So I'm reading these publications. They're all claiming 40, 50, 60% drops. And I'm looking at it going, I'm like, you guys are crazy. Like, I actually think we're going to, when the governments start telling us we can pop our heads out of our houses and start exploring a bit more than we are right now, I actually see an increase. But I want to get both you guys' thoughts, opinions on this. And Ben, I'll start with you because I think, where you are as far as having an online marketplace, you're seeing some of those analytics right now. So I'm curious what you see and what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so I think that obviously because of the shutdown, there's a lot of people that are staying home and not going out, not driving as much as they did before. But that also means that there's a lot of pent up demand for vehicles, right? So I think once the lockdowns continue to ease up more and people start getting out more, there are going to be car buyers that they've been waiting for the last few months to make that purchase, and now there's going to be an opportunity for them to get out and do that, but also to get probably a good deal on a car. Like I've heard stories of manufacturers that are offering really good incentives at the OEM level on new vehicles, but also, if you think about the number of vehicles that are sitting at auctions right now, if those cars are not moving, they're going to have to be discounted to get them flowing again. And I think that anybody that's going to be in the market for a new used car should be able to get a pretty good deal.
Hey, Daniel, for yourself, actually, Ben, real quick, I'm actually concerned with a lot of the cars that are sitting out there. Being a dealer principal myself, it's like lot rot is a real thing. A car sits there long enough. Like, I just wonder how many dealerships used inventory is sitting there, and this goes any longer, how many of those are all going to need new brake pads? They're all going to have like flat patches on the tires. Like, I'm actually concerned as an industry from that profitability perspective is that our reconditioning expenses against these vehicles are just going to go up because the cars have been sitting there, for months on end. Anyways, right. I digress, but it's just something I was thinking of while you were talking there. Daniel, for yourself, what are your thoughts as far as these publications claiming 40, 50, 60% losses, over the next 12 months?
I think there's kind of like, I look at things in like three categories. There's this behavioral piece, right? Which was dictated by COVID-19 recently. So that definitely brought a lot of declines in year-over-year sales, 50, 60%, depending on kind of what the brand was or what the car was. And then there is this other behavioral trend I think you were talking about, Jason, in terms of kind of like, hey, long term, are people going to do ride sharing less? Is there pent up demand? How is the used car market, right? Like there is kind of that factor. And I think the third factor is essentially economic, right? So we had this kind of shutdown where we literally turned the economy off, for a couple of months. Like, what is that going to lead to in terms of consumer confidence, to the ability to buy a car, to being able to make rent payments, people's wealth potentially getting wiped out, and that all will lead to that will all affect kind of car sales, right? So the way I look at it is, like, honestly, I don't know. I think nobody knows. Like, we've never had a situation like this.
That's so true.
Since 1918, and cars, I don't think were that big of a thing back then. And
no, the closest thing is the 80s. That's about the biggest thing is when we had the gas crisis in the 80s.
Right. So the way I look at it is, hey, we are kind of coming into a time of uncertainty, and the ones that are going to be successful are the ones that are able to make adjustments and adapt quickly. Like for every dealer that I talk to, I'm like, hey, they're like, hey, what should I do? Well, let's take a look at now, but then tomorrow it might be different. We do digital marketing for a lot of our dealership clients. And, thankfully we have marketing automation built in to kind of help make all those adjustments, but it's more like what's true today can be completely different tomorrow, right? And sitting here spending too much time trying to figure out what's going to happen also, I think is kind of you want to put less focus on that and try to create a process where you can really adapt to change. I think is going to be key in the next couple of years, probably, because you never know, right? Like COVID-19 could come back. Who knows? I don't know. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, and a lot of people are saying, or you see in news publications that in October, COVID-19 might come back with a bang or half as bad. Like, I don't know. And we might have stay-at-home orders again. I don't know. So, yeah, I think having a process to tackle those changes, I think, is going to be really important.
No, I'm with you. I think process and technology is really going to be the key elements that's going to be, moving us forward and ensure that we are able to consistently output some level of profitability. Now, when I say process and technology, and Daniel, you actually mentioned this a little earlier, it's that process needs to be defined first. And once that process is defined, you work backwards towards the technology so that the technology supports the process. I find, I'm with you, Daniel. I find, too many times I talk to dealers and they look at technology as being like a quick diet pill or an easy button or the 12-minute abs. It's like, just do this and, you'll have a six pack. Like, no, trust me, I would know if they did. They do not. Okay. I tried. It doesn't happen. There's no such thing as 12-minute freaking abs. But because of that, and because of us having to process the crap out of everything, there's been kind of this consistent theme I'm getting from a lot of the dealers I'm talking to, and I'm curious to you guys' thoughts on this, is, and Daniel, you actually mentioned this a little earlier, everyone's having to do a lot more with a lot less right now. BDC's gone, like you said. You got your general manager in this, you got your sales manager doing that, you got salespeople being service advisors and salespeople all at the exact same time. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm curious, if you guys have had some of these conversations with dealers. But I'm getting some of my dealers, friends that are like, I don't know, man, like I'm doing a lot with a little right now. From a profitability perspective, I'm actually, yes, my revenue's down. All right, transactions are down, volume's down, but from a profitability perspective, I'm actually up. So it's like, do I really need to have such large teams, to do this? Do I need a BDC, a salesperson, a sales manager, F&I manager just to complete a transaction? People are having these questions. So I'm kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are, is, how do you guys kind of see a dealership's, structure, changing, when we get into that new norm? Ben, I'll start with you, and then Daniel will ask you the same question.
Yeah, so one dealer I'm thinking of that I talked to recently was kind of forced to lay off some staff. And, as a result, the sales managers and the GMs are kind of picking up the slack and doing a lot more than they normally would. So I think that, that might be a common scenario for the short term. Long term, I'm not sure how sustainable that is. I mean, when you have 2 roles that you're doing or 1.5 roles that you're doing, and you're, instead of 40, 50 hours a week, you're doing 60, 70 hours a week, how long can you sustain that for? So I think it's kind of a bit of an unknown. Once things do come back to some kind of normal, how much elasticity, I guess, is there in the dealership staff headcount? Are they going to be bringing back those missing heads, or are people going to be okay working longer hours and doing more? I don't know.
It's a good question. I mean, like I know some salespeople that are working remotely. So they spend a day or two in the dealership and then 3 days at home. And funny thing is, they're being more productive now than they've ever have in the past. So we'll see. I think there's gonna be some changes. Daniel, what's your thoughts on how the structure of dealerships will kind of change moving into the new norm?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think a time like this, you kind of realize, when you have growth, you get a little sloppy, right? Because you're like, hey, just throw more money at it, throw more people at it. We sold more cars. Hey, we weren't profitable, but we got our step incentives, and we were number 3, 4 dealer in the nation, and that's kind of a celebration. And while you do that, I think you kind of bring in a decent amount of inefficiencies. So in a period of a contractionary period like this, where you could kind of go in and say, hey, do I really need 3 people doing kind of the same job, right? So I think in that sense, things will kind of organize itself in some ways, where a lot of the dealerships might shed some of the positions that they might have had before COVID-19, and they might even create new positions that they feel like are now necessary. Maybe people who deliver vehicles, for
But that's a very good
that's all
point.
they do. All right, so I think there are going to be some shifts. Even with our company, so I don't know how Canada was, but the U.S. was just a mess in terms of how policy. I'll save that for
Trust
like
me,
the last
it was a giant mess as well. I mean, everybody was waiting hour by hour to
But,
find out what the hell we could do and what the hell we couldn't do. Like, yeah, hey, we're there with you.
yeah, and we actually had to furlough a few people from our company, and I hope our employees aren't. Like, they'll probably listen to this, but hey, we kind of didn't miss a beat. Okay, we didn't. And was it hard? Yes. Did we already hire them back? Yes. But at the same time, we kind of also had a lot of discussions with our employees saying like, hey, when you come back, you're going to have to step up a little bit here. It's just, and being frank with them. And I just feel like this is a great opportunity to do that even at the dealership and just question everything. Hey, do we need that position? How can we get it better without trying to offend anybody or getting offended by it because your position is no longer relevant? Like, that really doesn't matter. What it is trying to figure out what is the most efficient way to run things. And maybe there's a very American side of like just capitalistic thing.
No, I'm with you though.
That we are, but that's kind of how I look at it. And I think dealership organizations will be able to, the ones that go, hey, well, like, what positions do we need? Do we not need? And really thinking it through and questioning everything is going to be successful coming out of this.
Well, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned during this time frame. I mean, look, I'm not trying to downplay, the seriousness of the situation, and what hundreds of thousands of millions of people have had real hard impact, during this time frame. But I think there are lessons to be learned, and actually, that's a great question. That's, I think, a good question to ask both you guys. Is for dealerships, what do you think are some of the most vital lessons that need to be learned, right now during this time? Ben, I'll start with you.
I think one of the obvious ones is that dealers just need to learn how to be a bit more flexible than they have been in the past. When people are asking for new ways to buy a car, dealers just need to be able to learn how to accommodate those consumers. So things like remote test drives or at-home test drives, vehicle deliveries, sanitizing vehicle services, that kind of thing. It's a new way of doing things, and I think with COVID-19, it's been kind of the catalyst to force dealers to figure out how to change and adapt so that they can continue serving customers that don't necessarily, have the ability or want to come into the dealership to do business.
That's a great point. I'm with you. I mean, I think if, definitely that has to be up there in the top 3 lessons that, every dealer needs to learn is that, moving forward, the customer needs to be more at the core of both our sales and service process. I mean, guys, let's admit it. As an industry, we've developed out sales and service processes that are good for us as a business. Now, with the customer's expectations increasing so high, we have to put the customer at the center of all those processes. Daniel, for yourself, I mean, what lessons, do you think that dealerships really have to take the time to learn right now during this time period?
Yeah, I think, with things going, digital, a lot of the times one second. Can you guys hear me? Sorry. With things going digital, I think a lot of the times, we're realizing that digital marketing is actually playing a much bigger role in a lot of dealerships' lives. I mean, traditional marketing is almost non-existent right now. And, if you're giving somebody $20,000 a month and say, hey, go to town and get me the best results, that's not going to fly anymore for dealerships. I think the clients that we've worked with, we've always kind of asked for this. Hey, here's the thing, right? Like we're kind of an extension of your team in a sense that if your salespeople or you have business objectives to meet, whether it's move more used cars, or you got a bunch of 2019 F-150s that you need to move, or whatever it may be, service because you don't have your sales department open. If you're not properly communicating that to your digital marketing partners, whoever that may be, in terms of how to allocate the budget and things like that, and having a strategy discussion, not once a month after the whole thing's been over, but looking at it almost on a weekly basis and giving directions and creating that coordination between marketing and sales is almost non-existent in the automotive space. We've built some technologies to integrate the CRM and the inventory that the dealership has, and trying to figure out, if they have too much of this car, and automatically increasing budget and things like that. But there are so many things that just kind of get lost in translation. And some of the things that we're working on is giving dealerships tools to actually make those changes fast, right? Even without requiring us to be there. I think that's kind of what everyone needs to kind of walk away from, is that, man, I have to be so much more nimble, especially in digital marketing, and be so much more targeted and explicit than just throwing a lump sum of cash and then hoping for best results.
No, I'm with you, Daniel. I mean, I think the days of just taking up my manufacturer's ad mat, cutting it and chopping it, and just going, out there from a marketing perspective is just not acceptable. We have to get beyond what I call this full belly syndrome, where we're constantly talking about what we actually achieve, but rather talking about what we actually could have achieved if we had a bloody strategy in place. And I think that's a huge lesson for dealerships out there, is that strategy is insanely important. It's not enough, 3 days before the first of the month to say, so what do you guys want to market, this month? Like we really have to stop being reactive in our marketing efforts and our operational efforts, and be proactive and have a very consistent strategy that we're always going back to and pushing against to ensure it's the right strategy for us in the first place. Well said, Daniel. Thank you. Hey guys, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time, so that means I get to ask one last question of you before we sign off here. And of course, it is my favorite question to ask of the day. I prepped you guys before we did this, so I'm going to get some good ones, hopefully. Hey guys. All right, I'm going to start with you, Ben. Here's the question, Ben. What is pissing Ben off?
Well, I think one thing that's quite annoying for me is the fact that when I go to Walmart to buy some printer paper, I have to wear a mask and line up 6 feet apart from the person in front of me, and wait outside to get into the store to buy what I need. But I can still go into the store. But one of my favorite pastime activities is hiking, and I like to take my kids, on the hiking trails around here. There's a lot of good ones, but they're all closed. I can't go. I could go to Walmart and shop with hundreds of people, but I can't go on a hiking trail where, there's probably nobody else anyway. So
it's a good point.
Yeah, that would be my thing.
I'm with you on that one. That would piss me off. It's weird. You're right. I mean, I can go and stand in line with 60 people, but I can't walk, the trails that are next to my house. It's a weird one. Hey, Daniel, for yourself, what is pissing Daniel Kim off?
Hey, Jason, can you hear me okay? Do I sound okay? Okay, you were cutting off a little bit. Gosh, I don't know, like with the U.S., so kind of if you look at, the whole policy around distributing wealth we printed so much money in the U.S. Over the last couple of months. And I really appreciate the efforts that, our government is trying to really figure things out. But man, think about stuff a little bit. For example, if you look at in California, you get $450 a week for unemployment. If you add another, federally, they're adding another $600. There's only a 10% tax on it. So effectively, you're making, somewhere around like $1,000 a month, a week, and then multiply that by 4. That's $4,000. That's equivalent to a $6,000 gross salary. So, hey, at least with our employees, they all came back, but man, if you give this thing called a PPP loan to people and they have to use it immediately, we hire the employees back, but they only get 8 weeks. And I'm not talking about my business because hey, we're open. But like for restaurants, what, they're going to bring those people back for 8 weeks and then figure out that the stay-at-home orders are not done. So like, what are they going to do? Fire them again? Or you ask the employees to come back. Do you think they're going to come back because they're going to get paid only like 60% of what they're getting for unemployment, right? So there's so many things that I look at and I go, I understand we had to like kind of, everybody was flying at the seat of their pants, but doing a little bit of thinking and then trying to figure out, and then they get mad at these big corporations like Shake Shack and like the Ashford Hotels or whatever. And I'm like, wait, you guys approved them in the first place. They qualified based on the policy that you wrote. So why are you blaming big businesses? I would have done the same thing if I was a public corporation and I qualified for this loan, right? I need it, right? There's Ashford or whatever, is like they claimed like almost $100 million, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, yeah, their hotels are closed. What would I do in that situation? I would apply for the loans, but then why do they get to be the bad guys versus the Steve Mnuchin? Come on, man. Like, maybe you should have thought this through a little bit. And now everybody's afraid of getting the PPP loan because they don't think they're going to get. And it's sad, right? Like the people who really need it fucking don't get the support, and it's really sad. And it just creates a lot of bureaucratic work. Billions of dollars to banks that are processing these loans are getting rich. I mean, it's a little bit sad to see that, and yeah, that's like what I was pretty pissed off about, and then I moved on. So
no, yeah. Man, I'm with you, dude. Like, how do you dig yourself out of a hole? Well, you dig a deeper hole. That's how you dig yourself out of a hole. I guess that's the general consensus with some governments, but to your point though, we're having similar issues up here. I mean, I have some employees right now at dealerships that are like, I'm good. Can I just stay laid off? Like, I'm doing fine, with what I'm able to collect and what I'm getting from the government. Like, they don't want to come back to work. It's like, I'll come back to work and for what, 15% more than what I was making. Like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. Now, in Germany, since, my wife is actually from Germany, that's why she's there right now. She's actually doing her PhD. She has a part-time job there, and it's amazing how they do it. So what they do is you stay employed, and the company pays you, and then the government pays a percentage. So it's like 60% is like what they're doing right now.
We got something similar.
People can actually apply for additional assistance based on how much money you have in your bank account, how much money you're making now, additional income you have, and what your expenses are. And they'll give you additional money if you need it, right? So everybody stays employed. Like, you're not going to see like this 20% unemployment rate like in the US. And I'm like, wow, like as bureaucratic as Germany is, and I'm sure it's hard to get anything done. I'm like, man, they kind of thought things through a little bit more, and it's just a little bit more, and the funds are dispersed in a way where you don't have to like create a new system to apply to something, and you get shut out. Like, we got shut out for PPP loans on round one because we tried to go through Bank of America. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but like, big banks really let people down. And man, I probably wasted at least a week's worth of my labor in researching, reaching out to people, making sure that we're in line and all those things. And I'm like, why do I have to do? Why don't you just pay me through the sources that I pay you for payroll taxes and things like that? They would just like either give me a credit or something. Like, it can't be. I don't know. This is very.
I'm with you. It's very frustrating, right? It's very frustrating running a business right now. Hey, that was an awesome rant, Daniel. You rock. Thank you for that. Hey guys, for everyone out there who's watching and listening right now and would love to connect with you, fine two gentlemen, what is the best way to do so? Ben, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So I can be emailed at ben@carpages.ca, or you can go on LinkedIn and connect with me on there. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Daniel, for yourself, what is the best way to connect with you, sir?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at DKLovesCars, or my email is daniel.kim@orbeeauto.com. Or come to our website, fill out a lead form there.
That's perfect. Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jason.
You
Appreciate
guys
it.
have yourself a good one.
Thanks, Jason.